Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Today we're continuing my whole Roman series. So we've learned about like the Roman walls. We learned about the elections, all that jazz. We learned everything Roman. We have I think one more person that will get his own video, and then it just kind of progresses into the whole Caesar movement that everybody knows and has learned about for years. And the things you learned in seventh grade back in secondary school or middle school. Anyway, this one is called His Year Clodius, something like that. Anyway, it's 58 BCE. So as you can see, we're getting a little bit farther ahead and ahead. It's a pretty short video, so I'm actually going to be probably posting two videos today. So be on the lookout in about an hour for the next video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's check it out.
Publius Clodius Pulcher was one of the tribunes of the plebs in 58 BCE, and we're going to talk about what he did during his year, but first we have to set the stage a bit. Before 58, Clodius had been a minor player in the Reform faction. He was around for some of the events that we've talked about already. Clodius, or Claudius as he was known at this time, served as one of Cicero's bodyguards during the Catiline conspiracy in 63 BCE. Then, at the end of Cato's year as tribune of the plebs in 62, Claudius was caught in a sex scandal. Here's the short version. A religious ceremony was being held in Julius Caesar's home. This particular ceremony was being performed by women, so Caesar was gone and his wife Pompeia was leading it. For some stupid reason, Claudius dressed up as a woman and snuck into the ceremony, intent on seducing Caesar's wife.
Are you kidding
me? He was
me?
discovered, obviously. As you can.
How do you dress up as a woman? I mean, like, all I'm envisioning is, like, you guys ever seen that movie White Chicks? Or, like, I don't know. I can't even think of anything. It's Jesus Christ. I'm thinking of some, like, old Roman guy putting on a wig made of horsehair or something. And, I guess a female version of a toga or something. I don't know. And, walking in there.
Imagine, this was a juicy scandal, and it would become the obsession of the political class. Caesar would end up divorcing his wife over this incident.
Wow.
Claudius was put on trial for committing a sacrilege, and what followed became the...
That doesn't seem fair at all to his wife. Jesus.
Trial of the century. Improbably, Caesar ended up as one of Claudius's most vocal supporters. This seems weird to us, and it seemed weird to people at the time, but these men were both reformers, and apparently Caesar was more interested in supporting his political ally than his own wife. Claudius's whole defense was that he wasn't even in Rome on the day in question. Cicero was the only person willing to testify that that wasn't true. Claudius saw this as a betrayal, and he wouldn't forget it. Against all odds, Claudius was acquitted. Word is that both judge and jury benefited from huge bribes from prominent reformers. The ruling was just as scandalous as the crime itself. Anyway, let's jump ahead. Claudius would go on to be elected quaestor, and would receive a lifetime appointment to the Senate as a result. During Caesar's year, in 59, Claudius got it into his head that he wanted to run for tribune of the plebs. Why? Here's my theory. The system for electing praetors and consuls was heavily weighted towards the rich and powerful. These people hated Claudius's guts from the whole sex scandal thing. He was still a few years away from being eligible for praetor, but he needed to beef up his resume if he wanted to stand a chance. Plus, we shouldn't overlook the fact that Caesar's election in 59 was a big turning point for the Reform faction. They had been in the political wilderness ever since the Catiline conspiracy, and Claudius was eager to be part of Caesar's new populist wave.
I get that he's a reformist and he politically stands with you, but first off, dressing up as a girl and sneaking in, I still can't get like the vision of some crappy 1990s American movie out of my mind. That being said, then trying to seduce his wife, it blows me away how that went down. She ends up getting, or it leads to a divorce. Caesar backs against his wife. The guy who was trying to seduce his wife. None of this makes any damn sense. Other than, like, it just proves how devoted Caesar is to his cause, I guess. I mean, if I was an average Roman citizen, that would all leave a very bad taste in my mouth for this guy. For Claudius.
But there was one catch. Clodius was part of an old patrician family and was therefore ineligible to run for tribune of the plebs. The hint is in the name. The tribune actually had to be a plebeian. So with the help of Caesar and Pompey, Clodius came up with a scheme to get around this restriction. He renounced his patrician status and was adopted into some random plebeian family, with Caesar as Rome's head priest conducting the adoption ceremony. The whole thing was a farce. His new adoptive father was younger than he was. To show off his new plebeian status, Clodius changed his name to Clodius, and immediately threw his hat in the ring to become one of next year's tribunes of the plebs. He won. I've mentioned this before, but tribunes of the plebs started their terms in December, so he got to overlap a little bit with Caesar's term as consul.
Oh yeah.
The first notable thing he did, and we can now recognize the full importance of this act, was to veto Biblis's final speech on his last day as consul.
Oh,
Clodius
he
wanted
was
to
that
remind
guy. I remember that from the last video with Caesar. Okay, so it all kind of comes full circle.
Himself publicly with Caesar, and humiliating Biblis was a great way to do just that. Clodius came in with a full slate of populist reforms he wanted to pass, very ambitious for a tribune of the plebs. First, he proposed a bill that made the grain dole not just heavily subsidized, but 100% free for all qualifying Romans. You can just imagine how this drove the conservatives crazy. Cato had radically expanded the grain dole in an attempt to mollify the reformers.
My question is, how the hell are you going to pay for that? You know, giving out all that free all that free grain, you know, where's the money coming from?
I guess it didn't work. After Cato and Clodius expanded and deepened the grain dole, it took up a significant portion of Rome's annual budget.
Yeah, see?
Cicero raised objections to the high cost of this bill, just like he did last time with Cato. But with two reformers as consuls, Cicero didn't have enough support to halt the momentum of the populists. The bill passed. Clodius then introduced the bill, further aligning himself with Caesar. The bill would take away the consul's ability to shut down public business over bad omens. This was one of the tools that Biblis had used when he attempted to undermine Caesar's year as consul. With this bill, the message was clear. The reformers intended to have electoral success going forward, and these little procedural tricks weren't going to fly anymore. What Biblis did was still very unpopular with the public, so the bill passed easily. Cato had made Caesar's life a living hell during his year, and Clodius wanted to eliminate him as a potential threat. His plan was a little complicated, but here it goes. Clodius argued that in the east, the island of Cyprus, which was an autonomous region under Egypt's influence, rightfully belonged to Rome. Remember, Egypt had been left in a will to the Roman Republic, and Rome hadn't really done anything about it. So Caesar had settled the issue by accepting huge bribes and renouncing Rome's claim. Clodius introduced legislation arguing that this deal didn't extend to Cyprus, since it wasn't technically part of Egypt. Was Clodius right? In a strictly legal sense, maybe, but it seems clear to me that the spirit of Caesar's deal with Ptolemy was that Rome would leave Egypt alone.
Yeah, it seems kind of shady, and it's going to lead to nothing good.
After only a year, Rome was beginning to chip away at that agreement. After that bill was passed, he followed it up with another one, saying that Cato should officially oversee Rome's annexation of Cyprus. This was just a ploy to get Cato out of the way, by sending him overseas to do a job that any nameless bureaucrat could do. But Cato felt honor-bound to obey the will of the Senate, so he went. Clodius was a busy lad, but it was all building to a purpose. He introduced another piece of legislation, taking away the provinces that had been assigned to the sitting consuls, and giving them more prestigious and wealthy ones instead. Clodius was doing two things here. He was signaling to the reformers that we take care of our own, and he was basically bribing the consuls for what would come next. Now the stage was set. All of Clodius's machinations so far were building to this. He introduced a bill that would make it retroactively illegal for any public official to execute any citizen without trial. Key word, retroactively. There was no mistaking who this bill was targeting. The only living person it applied to was Cicero, who had executed the ringleaders of the Catiline conspiracy in his year. He had done so with the approval of the Senate, but it didn't matter. This bill would make it illegal anyway. The two sitting consuls, being sympathetic reformers and sufficiently bribed, backed the bill. It's a testament to the strong populist energy in the air that Cicero's personal popularity in the Senate wasn't enough to stop this from happening. The bill passed. Finally, Clodius would have his revenge. He officially charged Cicero for the executions of the prisoners during the Catiline conspiracy. When they went to trial, Clodius seemed to be getting a lot of support from the people. At times, the audience in attendance could get pretty rowdy, and at the end of each day when Cicero would walk home, a group would follow him, shouting insults and pelting him with stones. Cicero began to fear for his life. After several days of this, he made the difficult decision to flee the city. Clodius jumped all over this. As soon as he found out, he introduced another bill formally banishing Cicero and seizing all of his property. The trial showed how much influence Clodius was gaining out on the streets, and the Senate didn't have the courage to stand up against him. The bill passed, and Cicero would spend the next year of his life in exile. Like the rest of the Senate, Pompey had stayed quiet during the debate to banish Cicero, but Pompey liked Cicero, and more importantly, he liked his politics. He began working behind the scenes to gather the support from other senators to overturn Cicero's banishment. Clodius caught wind of this and ordered his growing gang out on the street to focus their attention on Pompey. They gave him the same treatment they gave Cicero, and it got so bad that Pompey didn't feel safe leaving his home. They may not have realized it at the time, but Clodius had effectively seized control of the government. Rome's politics were broken. But Clodius's opponents had one more trick up their sleeve, and it's the oldest political trick in the book. They just decided to buckle down and wait him out. 8 of the 10 tribunes of the plebs joined forces and blocked all significant legislation from everybody. Pompey and other senators started lobbying next year's consuls to overturn Cicero's banishment after Clodius was out of office. It would take months and months of hard work, but in time, the Senate would get Cicero home. Clodius's year may have ended with gridlock, but he would go down as the most consequential tribune of the plebs in more than 60 years, and in the years to follow, his influence would only grow.
Jesus Christ, screw that year, you know? I mean, Jesus, he just took power. Anything he wanted, he was mischievous, and it seems like that's the way that the Senate really is. It just reminds me of like the modern day Senate, you know? Our American Senate, I mean. Wow. Anyway, next up is a line of 3 or 4 Caesar videos in a row, so I'm really stoked for those. Stick around and we'll check them out. Till next time, I'll see y'all later. This is Ace Society, and I'm out.